Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Pead, a very, very most important guest I could ever have with me today. My wife, Sarah, is here to contribute to our Confessions of Enneagram series. I've talked many times on this podcast about how myself as an Enneagram 4 am married to an Enneagram 1, and I get a lot of interesting looks about how does that work out for you? I think it worked out pretty well. 17 years and counting. We're still going strong. But before we get into this episode today, I want to remind you that I'm here to help creatives know themselves, their process, and their teams more and accomplish greater things together. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast platform, you're really missing out. Sarah looks hot today. But thank you for listening. I would really appreciate a 5-star review if you could do that. It helps further this content. If you're watching on YouTube, you are blessed because you get to see the hotness.
Oh my God.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all those fun things for us. If you are interested in following along on Instagram, you can find me right here. If you're watching, it's at Dustin Pead, at DustinPead, or DustinPead.com. I think that's all the business out of the way. So, I don't know what order this is coming out in, whenever. But we're obviously going through all 9 of these. And at some point, this episode will be hitting your ears and your eyes for your viewing pleasure. Confessions of an Enneagram 1. I have Sarah, my wife, with me today to talk about what that means. But before we dive in to the hard questions, I want to start like I start every other episode in this, where we walk through overview of Enneagram, of the Enneagram number that we're talking about. And we do that with our friend Jackie Brewster, who has come out with lots of great content for us. In fact, Sarah and I are going through her latest book together right now, Enneagram for Marriage. But she has this really great resource called Enneagram Essentials, 125 cards for self-awareness and connection. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm showing it to the camera right now, but it's not because our faces aren't covered. We got to cover it.
This way.
I don't know. Maybe. Did it get it?
But the question is, are we kissing behind it?
Probably. We probably are. You can find this on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. It's a really, really great resource. And so I'm going to be reading from that to start us off of just kind of an overview of an Enneagram 1, in which once I'm done, Sarah as an Enneagram 1 will correct me in all the ways that I'm wrong, or Jackie's wrong. I don't know who's wrong here, but either way, she's right. So Enneagram 1, the moral perfectionist. We'll talk about that in a second because that's no longer what they're called in the PC world of Enneagram. Ones are self-disciplined, conscientious. Man, I did not practice that, and I'm glad I got that word right. Responsible, ethical, serious, and orderly. That one for sure. They feel personally obligated to improve themselves and their world. They want to do what's right while having integrity and remaining balanced. In order to avoid criticism or shame, they strive to be consistent with their ideals. Right or wrong, Sarah? How we looking?
Pretty on point. The only difference is that in recent news, the moral perfectionist is no longer applicable. We are the improver.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be told that we're perfect.
And perfection's unattainable, right?
It's unattainable.
I just want to hear you say that. Okay.
Therapy, y'all.
Therapy. What's up? What's up, therapy? So I have here also with me the Enneagram 1 card from this deck. It's just kind of the basics, and so I'll be referring to this as we go along. But Sarah, let's start off with what's something that most people wouldn't know about you as an Enneagram 1.
That there is a very loud voice in my head.
Yeah.
Known as the inner critic, who continuously, well, Jackie actually told me I need to name her.
Ooh.
I've yet to name her.
Breaking news. We might name her right here on this episode today. And if we don't, you can drop it in the comments.
Yeah. What should we name Sarah's
Sarah's
inner critic?
I'm going to say Sarah.
That sounds like, hey, Sarah. Like, that sounds too happy.
Well, it's also a wine, isn't it?
Sarah.
Okay, we're getting off track. Go ahead. Like he has an inner critic, doesn't have a name.
Doesn't have a name. The inner critic is always yelling at me. even if things look amazing.
I'm gonna do this because it's more comfortable.
Yeah, the inner critic is always telling me I'm doing something wrong.
That sounds miserable.
So I might be smiling on the outside, but we don't know is that whoever the inner critic, she shall remain nameless right now, whoever she is telling me I'm not doing a great job.
Yeah, I mean, that lines up with, if we're looking on Jackie's card here, the core desire for an Enneagram 1 is to be seen as good. And the heart longs to hear that you are good. So I could see that. So let's put on the Enneagram 1 colored glasses for a second. Okay. We put on the Enneagram 1 colored glasses. How do we now see the world? How do you view the world around you as an Enneagram 1?
Yeah. So 2 answers to this one. I view the world as beautiful just because I love seeing all the things. It's just, you know that about me. The kids know that about me. I'm the nerd who's like, y'all come look at this new moth I discovered. It's so pretty. I'm going to draw it. But I also, unfortunately, see the world as always needing to be fixed. It's really hard as a 1 to walk into a room and not see what's wrong. Yeah. It's not an intentional, like I'm not walking into a room or a space to say and criticize what's wrong. It's just everything that's wrong stands out as a sore thumb. So, and when I say wrong, obviously like that's relative, but in my eyes, I'm going to see the dirty socks sitting on the floor in a room that's completely clean.
Gotcha. So it'd be difficult for you to relax in some of those less than perfect situations sometimes. Yes. Understood.
For sure.
Understood. All right. So let's talk about the best part about being an Enneagram 1. What's your favorite thing? What do you love the most about being an Enneagram 1?
Honestly, I like that when I'm the most healthy, I line 7. Which means I get to have a lot of fun.
So what I'm hearing
and
is
I'm
that
spontaneous, and I get to be a lot like my sister-in-law, my sister, who y'all did hear or will hear eventually.
Yeah, she was our Enneagram 7.
She's a 7, and so she and I have the best time together.
So your favorite thing about being a 1 is that you have opportunities where you're not a 1. Got it. Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
no, then I mean, I love going into a space and being able to improve it and help in that regard.
Yeah. I can see that.
So there is definitely that.
Yeah, you like being able to help.
I do enjoy doing that.
Sure.
But I do also love lining 7.
Yeah, 7s are great. All right. So then opposite of that, what frustrates you the most about being an Enneagram 1?
When I first took the test, I really wanted to be a 4. Because 4s are creative and I'm a designer and an artist. And I was like, what do you mean I'm not a 4? Like you could ask many 1s and they do not want to be a 1. They don't want to be, again, that moral perfectionist, the improver. So that frustrated me. But again, back to like the whole pointing out what's wrong with the situation.
Yeah.
I wish I could walk into a space and not itch. Because of what is going on.
I mean, that sounds like a real problem.
But I do internally. I'm like, fix it, make it better. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get some rapid fire for a second. Okay. Are you a thoughtful person? Like you think through everything? It's extremely thought through, or are you whimsical? And in what ways?
Thoughtful. I will plan our conversation. Before you know our conversation is going to happen 3 days in advance.
That's amazing.
And
what happens if it doesn't go to plan, Sarah?
I go to plan B, which I've also thought out.
Because there's also that plan.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's all right. Me and my counselor are working through it.
Sure. Are you selfish?
No.
Why are you not selfish?
I'm a 1. I'm not allowed to have anything wrong with me. Okay. So in reality, yes, I'm very selfish because I want it my way.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you for the real answer.
Yes, that's the real answer.
All right. What do you envy as an Enneagram 1?
On a surface level, you know this about me. I envy people who have fences around their farm properties. But if you go deeper, it's because I envy those who appear to have everything that they want or need. Yeah. So there's always kind of this if only I mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you thrive on as an Enneagram 1?
Checklists.
I didn't even think of that answer. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Checklist. All right. Well, let's check that question off the list.
Processes.
I love that. All right. So we talk often about Enneagram wings. The way I explain it on every episode is that unless you have a handicap, most people have two hands. And if that's the case for you, if you have two hands, then one of them is a more dominant hand. You be considered right-handed or left-handed. It doesn't mean if you're a right-handed person that you don't have or use your left hand. You have it and you use it, but your predominant hand would be your right, and vice versa if you're left. So in the same way, Enneagram acts the same way with wings. And so for an Enneagram 1, if you look on the circular Enneagram chart, you might be like, well, what's left? What's on one side of 1 would be 0. On Enneagram, the other side, it just goes backwards. And so it goes one side wings to 9 of a 1. 1 can wing either 9, the number on one side of it, or it can wing to a 2, the number on the other side of it. So with that explanation, Sarah, what is your predominant wing and how can you tell?
So I'm going to throw a curveball in that I'm a 9 and a 2. Those are my wings, and they tend to work together.
Ambidextrous, is that what they call it?
No, it just means a bird who has 2 wings that can fly. But yes, ambidextrous.
If you can write with your left hand and your right hand.
I think that's the.
Is that the word?
That's the word. So, the 9 wants to be the peacemaker and avoid conflict. The 2 wants to help. Like if I'm just giving kind of like the broad in terms of me. So I help a lot of times in social situations because I want to avoid conflict and keep the peace and make sure things are nice and level.
Yeah.
It does. I might use one a little bit more here and there, depending on the social situation. Family, for example, if I'm with family, I tend to lean on that peacekeeper side. But if I'm with like friends and we're like working on a project, I'm going to lean to that 2 wing to help a lot, to be the helper.
That's interesting. I've made the connection before about how 9s and 2s are so similar, but I've often forget that 1 is sandwiched in the middle of that and the internal struggle that they must feel because of how similar 9s and 2s are. And there's the one in the middle just trying to be perfect. Just trying to hold everything
keep it all
together. I love it. That's fantastic. All right. So I think all of us feel some sense of there's a gaping hole, there's something missing, or there's something incomplete or defective. What for you as an Enneagram 1, in what ways do you feel defective or incomplete?
Feeling my feels tends to make me feel defective. So the signature sin of the 1 is anger.
Yeah.
And anger tends to, in a 1, kind of act itself out as resentment, which resentment is something that you tend to keep to yourself. So I feel feelings, but feel bad for expressing those feelings, especially if I'm angry about something.
Yeah.
And especially if it's people that I'm closest to, because I don't want to hurt those people. But if I keep it in, when I keep it in, it then just explodes.
Yeah, and in those feelings, and you talked about wanting to be a 4. We haven't really talked a ton of lines. We've a few of the people that we've had on here in this discussion, we've talked about lines and stress and lines and growth or health. For you line to, as a 1, you line to a 4 under stress, right?
So I feel all the feels.
Right, and that's kind of crippling for you, right? Like interesting.
Yeah. Okay. It feels too vulnerable to be able to show the feelings, because again, there's that maintenance of everyone has to see me as okay, as good, and so to come into a situation where maybe I've been upset or something, my face says it, and then people ask, "What's wrong?"
Yeah, and
I'm faced with a choice. Do I answer honestly and be like, "I'm just not doing too great," or am I saying, "I'm great, everything's great, I'm gonna be fine"? Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah. I hear that conversation a lot.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that we've been doing this series, Confessions of an Enneagram Number, is so that people can increase empathy with one another, and and in that increase kindness and grace and mercy towards one another as we seek to understand each other more. And so when someone is interacting with a 1, how do you best get along with people as an Enneagram 1?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, and I don't really know if I know. I mean, I get a lot of feedback from people, a lot of encouragement of you're just so great, you're so thoughtful, you know, like all these compliments, and they could be true. I hope, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I am. So I try, in the most recent years, I try to go and interact with people in the most true and honest way that I can. And I feel like more and more I'm giving myself permission for them to see the not so perfect side of me.
Gotcha.
So
let's ask it this way then. This is a little bit off the cuff, but how does someone then best get along with you as an Enneagram 1? Like, what are the things that you're like, if these are the type of people that when I'm around, we seem to click, and the vice and the opposite of that, like what the type of people that you're around and you're like, I need to get away from that type of person?
Yeah. So I'll start with the people that I would need to get away from.
Okay.
Is if I am continuously called out or criticized in front of other people, told that my ideas are not good, just kind of, I don't need everybody to agree with me.
You're already critical enough of yourself.
Right.
You don't need someone else that's going to be verbally overly critical of you.
And if they do need to talk to me about something, I would hope that they would do it in a private manner and not in front of a bunch of people, because that's just embarrassing to me.
Okay.
The type of people that I really enjoy being around, and like, I get that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Just the ones who just will let me be myself. They'll let me talk about my crazy chickens and how we homeschool our kids, and you know, just that I just get to be me and I don't feel like I have to put on this face.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
all right. So everybody kind of has that one attribute that is the most important thing to them in life. Like, for example, as a 4, authenticity is the most important thing to me. So as a 1, what's the most important thing to you?
Honesty and integrity.
Yeah, I can see that.
If you say you're going to do something, then do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it helps if you tell me when you're going to do it. Otherwise, I might badger you about when you're going to do it. So, yeah, and just be honest with me.
I love it. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to say that you want other people to know about what it's like to be an Enneagram 1?
Yeah, we're not fun suckers. We might be rule followers, but that doesn't mean that like we don't like to have fun. Like, I'm not coming into a space trying to be the Debbie Downer.
We talked about lying to 4 and stress, but you lied to 7 and growth.
And growth, and
health.
Yeah. So it's like, I do want to have fun. I don't want to break the law by having fun.
Just want to have fun.
There it is.
I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being on this episode. It was super fun, and we made it, and we didn't die.
Nope.
I want to tell people,
didn't get in a fight.
And no fights. We don't fight.
No.
I mean, not like hardcore fight, not like this or anything. Want to tell people about where they can find some people that have helped us in our Enneagram journey. You can follow Jackie Brewster, who I showed her resource at the beginning of this. You can follow her on Instagram, or her website is Enneagram with JB. You can find her on Instagram with the same handle at Enneagram with JB. Someone else, Beth McCord, and her husband, whose name slips my mind right now.
Is it Jeff?
Yep. Jeff and Beth McCord. Beth McCord runs YourEnneagramCoach.com. It's usually where I send people to take the Enneagram test if they want to take the test for the first time. She has a great free test link on her site. And if you're brand new to Enneagram and you're trying to figure it all out in one succinct manner, I would highly suggest that you read The Road Back to You by Ian Morgan Cron. So, did I miss anything as far as suggestions? To suggest people where they find, like, where they can learn?
Oh, no, I think those are great.
Yeah, so there are marriage books. There are marriage books if you're interested in how this dynamic works within marriage. It's been super helpful for Sarah and I. Jackie Brewster has one. Beth McCord, your Enneagram coach, have one. And we lean on them the most because they use the Enneagram through the lens of the gospel, which is super important to us as believers. So If that's something that concerns you with the Enneagram, I highly suggest that you lean into their teaching, because it really, at the end of it all, it's not about identifying with a number. It's more about identifying in who Christ and who God has made you to be uniquely. So I don't know if this is the end of the series, or I don't know if this is somewhere in the middle of the series. Either way, it's been awesome. I can't wait to continue the conversation with you more next time on the podcast. We'll talk to you then.